Hi, Cecilia and Belinda. Welcome back to therapy this week. Last week, Cecilia, when we were talking, you mentioned that on a scale of 1 to 10, that you were a 4 in regards to the frustration that you've been feeling at school, not really feeling like you fit in and constantly having to prove yourself because you feel different than your other peers that you interact with. And I'm wondering this week, on that scale, with 10 being the highest and 1 being the lowest, where you kind of fit, if anything has changed or if it's different now.
I feel like it's still a 4 of my frustration at school, just having to deal with feeling that I do stand out, like you said, and being the only Asian African American populated school. So yeah, it's worrisome. So I try to ignore it, but still it's hard to put back.
So nothing has really changed from last week to this week?
I don't feel, this is the first time that I'm able to talk about it. So I guess it's a start. Miracles can't happen in a week, so.
Right. So, I know that last week you mentioned that there were times, though, that you were able to overcome this issue and when this problem did not exist. And I know, Belinda, you mentioned a little bit about your past experience living in a community in Bala Cynwyd where it was more so of a diverse population. What was that time like when this issue didn't exist, where Cecilia didn't feel frustrated around people that were dissimilar of her?
Well, that time, like you said, we were living in a neighborhood. It was very safe. There were all different types of people, different ethnicities. And when she went to school, she was getting good grades. She had a lot of friends, and they were all from different cultures. They got along so well, and it was just a much safer environment. And she didn't feel like she was the only person of Asian descent. So, and my husband was there too. So it was a very quiet time. And she wasn't always fighting. The only time I would be called into the principal's office if she was getting an award or something like that. And now I'm getting called, having to leave my 3 jobs because she got into another fight and they're thinking about suspending her. And this wasn't the Cecilia that was when we were in Bala Cynwyd.
So there was a time where you were able to interact with people that were different than you. And it was positive. It wasn't really negative where you felt like you had to prove yourself to them based on your differences. So how have you managed in this time period that you've moved from Bala Cynwyd to now North Philadelphia? How have you managed to prevent it from getting worse, from escalating to a different scenario? Because I know that you mentioned last week that there were times where you have been in altercations or someone has mentioned a rude remark to you, but it hasn't escalated to the extent.
I just talked a lot about it with my mom on weekend about how I feel and stuff. So she does tell me to look past it and just focus on my studies, and that I won't be seeing these kids for long, and that I'll be going off to college and stuff. So I kept that in mind, and I do try to avoid the tension and the anger from arousing, but those are some days, and other days it's very hard to do that, which is where these altercations, I guess, happen. So.
And how do you avoid them from happening? How do you avoid it from getting worse when you do get into altercations, like when someone does say?
I walk away, or I just try to do other things.
Okay. So you've been able to come up with different coping skills and strategies at times where you feel like it can be positive and you can walk away from the situation instead of kind of becoming reactive to it.
Yeah, sometimes it's possible. Yeah.
Okay. So I know that it's been difficult raising Cecilia in a single household, and I know that you mentioned before that you guys kind of lived with your parents, which would be Cecilia's grandparents, that they've helped you, but now that you guys have moved out of their home into your home together, and you're raising her as a female without a father figure, I was wondering if you guys were to wake up, say tomorrow morning, what might be a small change that would make you say, wow, like this problem is gone, we no longer have to deal with this? How would you guys know that the problem is gone?
I think for me it's a day when Cecilia comes home and she doesn't feel frustrated, or she didn't have a bad incident or a negative incident take place in school, because it's every day that these things are happening, and like she said, she's able to ignore it. So in a perfect world, she would come home and talk about the positive experiences she had in school.
Mm-hmm. And would you also agree with this, Cecilia?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that is what our intention for coming to therapy is for this to not be problematic, and for me to come home and only talk about the positive stuff with my mom and not to stress either one of us out with the bad things that are happening.
Mm-hmm. So in the perfect world, you would be able to come home and talk to your mom about positive aspects that are going on in school rather than the negative ones that are related to kind of your race. And I know that you mentioned before racial identity was extremely important for you, as you're more of African American descent and Cecilia is of Korean descent due to the adoption process that you all went through, and you kind of emphasized knowing Cecilia's racial identity and her background as well. So makes sense. Well, thank you for coming today, ladies, and I look forward to meeting with you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.